This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Hollee Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at HaleyBuickGMC.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond. We have a very special show this week, as we do every week, but this week it's with a guest from the Sorensen Institute. We have a current student, Hollee Freeman, we're glad that you're here, and Tony Pham, who's a graduate of the Sorensen Institute. So you're going to be followed by some folks who can tell the history, and they've been staff, but our viewers would like to hear from the two of you because they may be wondering, you know, would this be a program that I would be interested in? And so, Tony, you were a graduate way back in 2012. Holly's in the program right now, so let's start with you and let's have the two of you tell our viewers, why did you get into this program? Start with that question. Why did you decide to get into the Sorensen Institute program for political leadership?
Well, to begin with, I heard a lot of good things about the Sorensen Institute for Political Leadership, and just by virtue of wanting to engage in a meaningful dialogue with a lot of folks that I know about the policies that affect Virginians around the Commonwealth, I was looking for an opportunity to get involved and to learn a little bit more and to engage various individuals from throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Sorensen seemed like, and was the actual natural fit, because the program provided the participants a fair opportunity to meet so many other individuals throughout the Commonwealth who wanted to engage one another in a robust conversation about the issues that affect the citizens of Virginia and what could be the potential and possible solutions. And so I'm here representing the class of 2012, and I hope to make them proud. But it turned out to be everything that I expected it to be, meeting so many wonderful folks from both the Tidewater region here in Richmond as well as in Northern Virginia.
So, in the class now, still have a little bit more time before you graduate. Hollee, why did you decide to get into the program?
I would echo what Tony has said, and also for me, it was a personal decision. I'm a native Richmonder, but I lived in the Northeast for 25 years. Moving back to Virginia, there were some things that were the same, and there were some things that had changed quite drastically. And I found myself trying to figure that out. How had the politics changed, if at all? The economics, the social issues that were affecting the Commonwealth. And through a conversation with an alumni of the program, I heard about Sorensen, and I looked into a little bit more deeply and went to an info session. And the info session was where I met Bob and April and Colleen and alumni from the program and folks who were still in the program. And that solidified it for me. It was the way that people talked about their experiences of having conversations with folks both in or outside of your current political party, folks who had conversations. We had conversations about different economic issues, different social issues, different political issues, and I found it invigorating. and I also found it informative. So it really helped me, kind of like a compass. It helped me to orient myself to issues not just facing folks in Richmond, but issues, as Tony mentioned, that affects all of us in the Commonwealth. So it was a personal journey for me that has turned into quite the learning experience.
Now, our viewers may be trying to figure this out if they haven't heard as much about Sorensen as they will be hearing in this program. They were saying, well, did you have to quit your jobs? Is this a full-time program? I mean, you both are young people, but they may say, but not straight out of high school or necessarily college. So tell our viewers, Colleen, we'll start with you and then with Tony, because you're in the program right now, if you get accepted, and it is competitive, but if you get accepted, what's the time commitment that you make?
That's a great question. I'm the executive director of the Math Science Innovation Center.
Oh, so you have a full-time job.
I have a full-time job. I have a full-time plus job.
Yeah.
And I'm a former teacher and curriculum developer. And my question to the Sorensen leadership was just that. In a political program such as this, what would be my role in the program? And I had to answer that question for myself as well. As a former teacher, running a rather large nonprofit, where would I fit in? Again, it has been a pleasure to have a full-time job, and this actually informs my full-time job in many, many ways. And we meet over on the weekends. So one weekend a month, we all gather in one of the locales around the Commonwealth and discuss issues that are particular to that. So you can very much have a full-time job. We have folks in the program that are stay-at-home moms, and they are involved in the program. We have attorneys. We have policy developers. We have folks who lead nonprofits. So you can have a full-time job and still get the full benefit of Sorensen Institute.
And how was it for you, Tony?
Dave, I want to thank you for complimenting me for being young.
Yes.
I appreciate that. As counsel for Sheriff Woody here in the city of Richmond, I've been immersed in politics for the last 5 years of my career. So this was just a natural transition into learning a little bit more about the policy-related issues that affect all of Virginians. But also as a father of 2 children, I viewed this time-wise as an investment, as a growth opportunity for any individual who wants to participate in the program. It is a competitive process, and you have to compete, and you have to have a record of service and in those areas that the executive board is looking for. But I found it to be very rewarding, and it was worth the investment of taking at least one weekend out of not just my professional life, but also my personal life, being a married husband with 2 children. I mean, being away for that weekend meant a lot of catch-up time when you did return back in Sunday. So folks, when they look at the opportunities, there is a value-added benefit for investing in their own personal growth, like Hollee had said in her own individual journey. And all I can say is it certainly is well worth it, making lifelong friendships and developing those over time.
So the program's going to be ending for you shortly. You'll be a graduate.
Yes.
As you will soon, as Tony now can look back on it since 2012. When you look back on it and you're telling friends about the program.
Yes, I am.
When you already are ambassadors for this program, what else are you telling them, and what would you tell our viewers about why they should consider this?
I found the weekends to be invigorating, highly intellectual, sometimes frustrating. We have folks who are talking about very charged current issues in the Commonwealth. And that kind of effective dialogue, that kind of communication across party lines is what more citizens need to be able to do, and do with an air of trust, an air of civility, and an air of respect. And that is, for me, the one of the main benefits out of it, that not only am I a better citizen, but I am also able to provide some modeling for other folks who are similarly situated.
Tony?
David, the reason why folks should probably engage in this program is, and I say this to the current members of the 2014 class and 2015 moving forward, is that this is a lifetime journey. And you make lifetime friendships across the aisle, regardless of your political affiliation. And that is a value that folks need to be able to take away from it, is that I still have friends that I keep in contact with to this day who are near and dear to me and who I cherish. And that's what happens when you get people in this program from different political backgrounds at the table, engaging in meaningful dialogue and figuring out ways and policies that will help all Virginians.
So we want our viewers to make sure they go to sorenseninstitute.org, and we'll have that up on the screen throughout the program so they'll be able to see it, sorenseninstitute.org.
Can I add one more
Yes,
thing?
please.
One thing that we haven't mentioned yet is that the Sorensen Institute provides access to folks who are currently doing the work in the Commonwealth. We have frank discussions with delegates and representatives and advisors, and we are able to ask the hard questions and to get some responses and then debate and dialogue around those responses. And that level of access to people and to resources, so going to nuclear power plants and coal mines and going to small towns and learning about their economic infrastructure, that kind of access is hard to come by, and Sorensen provides an opportunity to really dive in and to hear from the people who are doing the work and to have a conversation with them.
You know, as you mentioned, some of the places that you have gone this year, Tony, why don't you take the final minute and talk, as you look back at the time, your experience, what were some of the unique places and experiences in parts of Virginia that had not been part of your life up until that time?
It's interesting, David. I wasn't born in the United States, but I got here as fast as I could, right? And so being here in Henrico County, Virginia, my world was pretty small, and Sorensen expanded that world for me by allowing me to travel outside of my comfort zone. So one of the areas that I went to that had a remarkable impact on me was in the Martinsville-Lynchburg area. Mm-hmm. Being able to extend my knowledge and my circle outside of the Richmond area to the other parts of Virginia, such as Martinsville, that suffered from what I can tell as a severe economic devastation, is the best I can call it, because of manufacturing leaving. I got to see the human impact of what happens, and that wasn't lost on me, living in the comfortable confines right here in the hub of the Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield area. So that, as an attorney, I was also able to visit the Martinsville Courthouse, a very historical area that brought all of my lessons in history that I learned through high school and college in full circle. And so here's a grown man sitting there in awe of this area in Virginia, which was right there for us to experience. And Sorensen was able to get me there.
Great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both for being
Thank
on
you.
This Week in Richmond, and our viewers to stay tuned, because in just a few seconds they'll be meeting Bob and April. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, after we've heard from two of the people who are in the program, we're going to hear from the two in charge. April Auger, who's the director of programs, and Bob Gibson, who's the executive director of the Sorensen Institute. And I think that the timely purpose in having you on at this time in the fall is probably one of the two, if not the number one, top issue around Capitol Square and throughout the Commonwealth has to do with ethics. And with ethics, particularly of those who are involved in public service and political life. And Bob, start us some on that subject, and then we'll weave into the two of you telling us about Sorensen and what Sorensen's doing. But Sorensen has been at the leadership in trying to elevate the issue of ethics for public discussion.
We're one of the few groups around the Commonwealth of Virginia that has, for 21 years now, had vibrant discussions about ethics in politics, ethics in government. And we have 23 of our alumni who are members of the Virginia General Assembly, plus the Lieutenant Governor, Ralph Northam, plus a couple of members of Congress. And they are always in discussion with people in the program and who have been through the program with them about how ethics laws might be improved in Virginia. And that's a very topical, timely discussion that the class is having this year, and I'm sure we'll continue to have that discussion next year.
So out of those discussions, particularly with the number of graduates you have that are in the General Assembly, I wonder if by January we might be seeing some legislation that has kind of a Sorensen stamp of approval on it.
Well, we don't take sides on legislation per se, but we do encourage bipartisan discussion of that legislation. So we have equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans and some independents and Greens and Libertarians mixed into our programs, and they get to know how people on the other side of the aisle are feeling and thinking. So it really strengthens the conservatives to understand what the Democrats are talking about and how they feel about an issue. It strengthens the Democrats to understand and really get to know how their Republican colleagues are feeling about an issue, and they can talk about it together across the aisle in a bipartisan fashion. That's the way policy has always been developed. It doesn't work as well when just one side is doing all the talking and all the voting.
And April, we have your director of programs.
Correct.
Plural.
Plural.
So how does this issue of ethics, stick with the issue of ethics, but how does it kind of filter through the other programs? And in fact, take the time, go ahead and tell our viewers about the other opportunities. Hollee and Tony were telling them about the one they were in, but what about other programs?
Other programs. So we have 5 programs at the Sorensen Institute, and in all of our programs we start with ethics. We start with ethics and we end with ethics. And it's funny, when opening weekend, usually I draw an umbrella on the board or on the flip chart, and I say ethics is the umbrella, and then everything else that Sorensen does falls underneath that umbrella. And that is across the board in all of our programs. Tony and Hollee were and are a part of our political leaders program. We have a candidate training one, which we're also accepting applications for right now. Then we have 2 youth programs, a college and a high school one, as well as our most current and recent program, which is the Emerging Leaders program. So we stay busy throughout the year running 5 programs, but all of the programs tie back to ethics.
Now, do all 5 programs have approximately the same time for applications? I think this is an application time for 1 or 2 of them.
It is. So currently we're accepting applications for the Political Leaders program and the Candidate Training program. In December, we will open up the application window for College and High School Leaders program. That runs until March, and then at the end of March, we open the application window for the Emerging Leaders program.
Okay, Tony and Hollee did a great job talking about the 1 weekend a month Political Leaders program. For people who might be interested in something, are there some that are not that intensive, or are they all about the same?
It depends on their interest. Our candidate training program is specifically designed for people who know they want to run for office, be it in a year or 2 or 3 years, but they know they're headed down that path. That program is 4 days. We usually meet in Carter Hall.
So that's very intense in one
It is.
week.
It's
Yeah.
a Thursday to a Sunday, all day into the night, on the nuts and bolts of what it takes to run an ethical campaign. And then our other programs are more designed or geared towards youth, be it the college or high school program. And then the Emerging Leaders program is usually ages 22 to 32 in their first job out of college, either lobbying or working as an LA or in some capacity in state and local government within the Commonwealth.
So on the ones who are running candidates, I think I recall that there was at least 1 race for the House of Delegates the last time in which both candidates, the Republican and the Democrat, were graduates of the program.
We've had 2 or 3 of those races where a Democrat and a Republican each has gone through the program, usually in a different year, and they tend to run campaigns that they are proud of afterward. They don't tend to use the slash and burn and lousy taste in your mouth after the election day campaign that many candidates have been using in recent years, and that has been increasingly a problem in Virginia because our politics in Virginia is increasingly mirroring the national politics and what's going on in the Congress. And Virginians really don't want to see too much of that. They would like to see people get back to a spirit of trust and civility and respect and bipartisan discussion of policy.
So you're headquartered in Charlottesville. Your political leaders program meets all around the Commonwealth. Do the other programs meet all in Charlottesville?
It depends on the program. Our youth programs are housed at the University of Virginia. It's a residential, both are 2-week-long programs. Our Emerging Leaders program currently meets half of the time in Colonial Williamsburg and in Richmond. And then the candidate training program is either housed at Carter Hall or at Montpelier.
Okay. So how did you get in, you yourself, the two of you, how did you get involved with the Sorensen Institute?
Well, I came over 6.5 years ago from being a reporter for 32 years. I had worked in Charlottesville, but covering the General Assembly and state and local government and politics. And I found getting to know people on both sides and how each of them looked at the issues from different perspectives, that they did share things in common. There was common ground between the Democrats and the Republicans. It wasn't all partisan. And when the job opened up in the beginning of 2008, I was just ready to look at something like that as a career change. And I'm so glad that I came over to Sorensen because I'm working with people who really care about their community. They want the government in their community and in their state to be one they can be proud of and that works for people, for ordinary Virginians. So we train people who have that ethic, and they really do a good job. They tend to encourage others to elevate the plane of discussion.
April, how did you get involved?
You know, I kind of fell into this whole political world, David. My background was public relations, and I actually did PR for a fashion design firm. Moved to Virginia. I'm not originally from Virginia, but I have adopted Virginia as my home. And 6 years ago, I ended up applying to the University of Virginia and got a job working with the Sorensen Institute. And I feel extremely fortunate given that I'm not from Virginia and I didn't have a political background as some would assume. However, as Bob mentioned, it's such an honor to work at a place that you believe in the work, you believe in the mission, and you see the relationships that are built and that continue to carry on throughout years.
Now, many of our viewers know about Sorensen, but some of them are seeing this program when they're learning for the first time. What would you want to tell them about, in our closing couple of minutes, about why they should consider looking at one of those 5 programs, or more than one of 5, and consider getting into Sorensen?
Well, our next program to operate will be the 22nd to the 25th of January, and that will be, as April mentioned, at Carter Hall in Clark County, just west of the Blue Ridge, west of Loudoun County in northern Virginia. And that's 4 very intensive days for someone who wants to run for school board or local county board or city council or the General Assembly or even for Congress. We have candidates who are running for Congress who go through that program. And we get equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans to talk to each other and understand how the other side feels. That strengthens their perspective in their own party. And they form, as Tony said, lifelong friendships with people, many of them people they never would have met or people on the other side of the aisle. So applying for that program by the 10th of November is something we would encourage a prospective candidate to do for any office in Virginia. And then the 10-month program, which April can tell you about, runs March through December and also has a November 10th application deadline.
And in closing, I would just like to encourage those people who maybe are watching the program and say, April or Bob, I have no interest in ever running for office. And that's okay. The candidate training program is designed for people who want to run for office. The political leaders program is made up of people who will run for office, but others who will never run for office, but they're community leaders, they're active in their parties, and if you're interested in being engaged, and it's an exciting time to be in politics, so I would encourage anyone to get involved.
Thank you both very much for being on This Week in Richmond. And
thank you, David.
We look forward to future conversations.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.